And we live now.
Hey, happy Thursday.
Yeah, happy Thursday. Hello,
You know,
everyone.
it's just nice to be not watching England play.
Yeah, it's been a horrible
Way more
game.
exciting.
Yeah, I can't say the same. Brazil's not been that the best as well.
Power in numbers.
So, oh wait, just a start. Cool. So I'm just gonna say the date here. So today's 27th of June, 2024. So we know when we're doing this. Today we have I'm gonna say special guest. So we got Motionhatch to help us. You've been helping a lot the industry. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself better than me. So can you tell everyone who you are, what you do, and then we get the conversation going.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Hayley Atkins, and I am the founder of Motionhatch. Now, Motionhatch helps motion designers do better business. So, we essentially help you start or scale your freelance business. We also work with some studio owners as well. And I have a YouTube channel and a podcast. And yeah, you should go and check it out. I don't really know what else there is to know, but I guess we're on YouTube. So the YouTube channel will probably be a good place to start if you don't know anything about Motionhatch.
That's nice. That's nice. I've got a question for you. And why did you start Motionhatch? Because
Yes.
it's not really a common thing, like in our
Mm.
industry, especially creatives, we kind of really bad, doing contracts and doing charging and things like that. Seeing like London, there is a community, people talk more, but when you go abroad and places like that, it's just no conversation. Why did you start that?
Yeah, so basically, because I went freelance as a motion designer, so I'd already been in the industry for, I think, about 7 years. So actually, I think, that's quite a long time to be working in the industry before going freelance. But I think that because I had that experience of working in-house with teams of animators, essentially helping the producers hire and putting teams together and helping kind of the client get the work done as well. I think I felt like I had quite a bit of experience when I went freelance. I think that really helped me. And obviously I had a lot of connections, and I lived in London at the
Both
time.
sides as well.
Yeah, exactly. So like from the client side, and then also, from, working with other animators and motion designers as well. And I think that really helped. And also just a lot of connections in London. And I mean, obviously this was a while ago when I started freelancing. So it was like going in house everywhere. And I think that definitely made it easier. Now, obviously, because of COVID and everything's gone more remote. I think it's harder to make connections. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But essentially, I went freelance and I had to take my friends to the pub in London and say, hey, like, what do you charge? And hoped that they gave me good advice. And I just remember thinking, wow, I think someone should help people with this. Like there should be information online and stuff like that. There wasn't anything at the time. And I
Charging's an
was
interesting one because it's sorry to interrupt. Like
no,
charging's an
good.
interesting one because in obviously British culture, it's like you don't really talk about money, do you? And then if someone's
Exactly.
asking you direct, then it's almost like they pretty much can guess. And also, with charging, like one price is appropriate to someone's experience and portfolio might not be appropriate to someone else. So I think it's a very difficult thing to judge, and then we have the cultural problem too.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's definitely like a dark art, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really felt like, oh, I think I spent a while being like, someone else needs to do something about this. You never think like, oh, maybe I can help. I didn't, because I was like, quite a new freelance. I think that maybe it was like 2 years in or something like that, 2.5 years into freelancing, but obviously been in the industry for a long time. And I just kept thinking like, yeah, someone needs to help creative people and specifically motion designers, because I was a freelance motion designer, to learn how to get clients, learn how to price your work better, learn how to communicate better with clients, all of that stuff that as creative people we're naturally probably not very good at, like you said,
We're
especially
great behind
pricing.
computers.
Yeah, exactly. We're great, you know, being in our own little worlds and making animation, but yeah, not very good on the business side of things. So I think, you know, what happened was basically, it's quite a strange story, is I was getting more into traveling and stuff like that. I always wanted to run my freelance business in a way that would allow me to go on holiday and travel and that kind of stuff, because I'd seen so many people come into the place I worked full time and just really be scared to take a holiday. And I totally get it, but I just thought I don't want to be one of those freelancers, because they had plenty of work, you know, at the time. And I just felt like I felt the fear, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to try and make it work for me in the way that I want. So the first year I went freelance, I think, or it might have been the second year, that would make more sense. I went to Thailand for a month, and it was in January. So I kind of knew that, like, okay, we know it's going to be a little bit quiet, you know, that kind of thing. But I just made a lot of effort to do those sorts of things. And like recently last year, I went to Europe for 5 weeks, went to Sweden and Germany. It's really important to me to travel. So I try and build my business around my lifestyle. So essentially that led me to joining a community at the time called Location Indie, which was basically more about being a digital nomad than it was a freelancer. But I thought, oh, this is like a really cool thing. And then I was like, someone should make something like this for motion designers, you know. But I just did it. Yeah, sorry.
It's also be kind of quite tricky for the delay is sometimes a bit annoying. Being a digital digital nomad, like say like 10, 15 years ago, I always thought it'd be quite tricky for animation and motion design, simply because of the size of the files that you're sending. Like if you're in like Thailand somewhere or wherever, and it's difficult to guarantee an internet connection. Whereas if you're in like a major European city or American city, then you're probably pretty set that, you know.
Yeah.
You want to travel to weird places.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, I think now we've got like, I'm sure there's like stuff out there. I don't know about internet, it's always an issue, but you know, like the file stuff, I think, you know, there's different technology.
It's way more viable now for sure.
You know,
easily.
Like, and also better laptops and stuff as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I didn't really want to be a digital nomad. It was more about like just making sure that I built my freelance business in the way that I wanted to build it. And then basically, cutting a long story short, because probably everyone has heard this before, but I met someone through that community who was basically helping people start podcasts. And I was saying, oh, you know, I'm really bad at writing. I guess I could do this kind of thing. But it was very much like a blogging era. And he was like, well, why don't you start a podcast? And I was like, everyone will hate my voice. You know, all of the things that everyone thinks that you think when you think about starting a podcast yourself. I thought that too. But it sort of just happened because of this one guy that I met who had a podcasting company, and he like helped me. Maybe he just wanted me as a client, but we're still friends today. Maybe. So it's fine.
That's good.
So that's essentially what happened. And then from there it kind of took off.
And how it's all going, you know, because how many people, you know, you've been helping and things. So I would love to understand, because it's not much out there, you know. Anything that comes, even for companies, even for small studios, you know, lawyers always cost a fortune, you know. Anything you want to do lawyer wise is just really expensive. So it's quite crazy to try and understand as a company. For me, moving from a creative to be, you know, running a company was like, wow, it's so much to learn, and there's not much information out there. So it's amazing to see someone doing something about that.
But also, there's the springboard from podcast into like school is probably quite interesting as well.
Yeah. So do you mean like, how did we go from building out the podcast into like more of an
what does the evolution look like in stages?
Yeah, so basically it was like a side project, right? Because like I was working full time as a freelance motion designer at this point. So I would just be doing like what we're doing right now, like getting on a call with people, just saying, oh, tell me about yourself, you know, tell me about your business. And for me, when I started, I felt like, well, I'm going to bring on the experts and they're going to tell me, you know, what they know, and I'll just put that information out there. That's kind of how I felt about it. And then obviously over time, as I kind of built up more knowledge myself, and obviously running Motionhatch as well, and learning more about that, and learning more about freelancing and doing that as well, kind of all, you know, compounded. But yeah, basically, I think what happened was, I think for about 2.5 years, I was doing full like Motionhatch stuff, and then also full-time freelance stuff. So it started with the podcast, and then I think I decided to build it was called the freelance contract bundle, which I was like, I don't know why, right? If anyone's out there, don't build a contract bundle. It's like the hardest thing to do. And I was like, first product, this is what we're going to do, because I was motivated by the fact that I knew it would be really helpful. And it's like one of the hardest things. So I was like, makes sense to help people with the thing they struggle with most. But it meant that I had to employ a solicitor in the UK, and I had to employ a lawyer in the US, which we've already said is extremely expensive. And then I learned so much about contracts just by doing that, by creating that product. It was ridiculous.
But yeah, the
So
deep
yeah,
end,
I don't know. It's
everything
like,
get
you
easier
know,
from there.
yeah, basically we've you know, we sort of discontinued that now because obviously I'm not a lawyer and I can't give legal advice. So although I got the lawyers to make it, I felt like we couldn't support people, you know, we're not allowed to legally to kind of answer questions and things like that, and that didn't really sit right with me. So I was like, okay, let's but we, you know, we've got a scope of work template that we give away for free and everything now. So
No, that's nice. How long have you been going with Motionhatch?
I think it will be, I want to say 8 years in November, maybe.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
Is it? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Brendan knows and he can put it in the chat. Yeah, I don't know. It probably, maybe it isn't that long. I feel like maybe a year or two ago we had our 5th birthday. So yeah, maybe it's more like, I had 7 in my mind, and that's why I was thinking. So maybe we're in the 7th year now, I think, maybe.
At which point did you make the decision to take Motionhatch full time? Like, what was the tipping point from freelance motion design into like, oh, you know, this is what I want to do. This is the full time gig now. Like, what was that? What made that tipping point?
Yeah, it was really hard because I was getting burnt out, basically. I didn't, you know, now I teach people about building systems and about automating things and delegating, and that's fully out of necessity because I had to learn that to keep doing this. But also at the time, because I was basically running Motionhatch full time, I think we also had the mastermind like course, the first course that I built, which was like an 8-week mastermind program. So we had that, we had the contract bundle, we had the podcast. So yeah, I was doing all of that and also working full time as a freelance motion designer. So I was like basically doing 2 jobs, 2 businesses, whatever way you want to look at it. And I was getting really burnt out. And I felt like because we were getting such great feedback and everyone was really enthusiastic, it just blew me away, to be honest, the response from the podcast. And even like this year when we brought the podcast back, technically for season 2, but you know, we have had like 100 episodes. So wow. Everyone was like, I was so excited, and it was just really nice to have the podcast back, because I think that was the thing that started it, right? So yeah, I was doing a lot. So I kind of just, you know, obviously I was earning some money from Motionhatch as well through the contract bundle, through doing the masterminds, putting people together. So I got to a point where I was like, is this financially viable? Can I make it? Because I really just felt like it was really valuable. So like, you know, even at the time, you know, maybe it probably wasn't making that much money. I just felt like, well, I know I want to put more of my time into this, because this seems like really what's resonating with everyone and really helping the most people, you know, whereas like I could have stayed as a full-time freelance motion designer, but I didn't feel like it was, you know, obviously like, where's the impact, you know, and what's your mission? What are you passionate about? And for me, it just felt like the way to go. And it was really funny because I remember talking to my accountant about it this is a funny story. And I was asking her, I was like, do you think that I can make it work? And it makes me laugh because, even though you can see the numbers on the page sometimes, and this applies to people if they're full-time now and they want to go freelance, you usually build up some clients on the side, right? Or like if you're going from freelance to a studio, you might have to build up like studio clients on the side. And then you kind of get to that tipping point and you have to look at the numbers and be like, does this make sense? And even though I knew that it did and it would be okay, I still felt like I had to seek permission, which I think is funny because I feel like now I'm in like a completely different mindset of that,
It's like, when you go
seeking.
Like what you say, like when you go from like full-time to freelance, you still like, even though you're probably going to be fine and then you've done your due diligence of building up clients and what have you, you're still jumping into the unknown, and
so
I think it's
scary.
the same thing. And it's funny because
definitely,
like say like 5-6 years, you look back and it's like, yeah, I don't know what I was worried about, but it's just the unknown void that's in front of you.
And to talk about moving, from full-time freelance is a good thing. I think we're trying to talk a little bit as well, is because the last 1 year, 1.5 years, the industry has been really suffering a lot, with recession, and we're not talking just UK, we're talking worldwide at the moment, and you have access to a lot of freelancers and everything. How do you feel there? You feel it's a shift going on, because through pandemic, I know a lot of people had a lot of problems and everything, but for animation, for a lot of studios I talked to, a lot of people was great because you couldn't film, you had a lot more animation.
Yes.
And now everything, the techs, like we get Meta, Apple, and everyone throwing money there, and now suddenly everyone's putting all back and stop. Commercial world is nothing much out there as well. How do you feel about that?
This is a two-pronged question, really, because I feel like be interested to know if it's had an impact in terms of subscriber numbers and people coming into the school as well.
So I think there's two sides of it, right? I think like the first question you're asking is about like, what am I seeing in the industry? Because like, obviously, like we talk to people all the time and stuff like that, and all the students and, on social media and that kind of thing. So yes, I agree with you. I think it seems like 2023 was the worst year for freelancers. Like, obviously, some people I know did really well, and some of our students did really well. And then some people didn't. Like, it wasn't across the board, but there's definitely like more and more people saying it's getting harder. And also the thing that I'm finding more why people are coming to Motionhatch is because previously they were relying a lot on referrals, like just referrals. So just people like saying, oh yeah, Thiago's free, like go and hire him, or whatever. But not like actually actively marketing themselves at all. And now I feel like people are sort of realizing, oh, okay, I need to kind of put myself more out there and things like that. And I can't just kind of wait for the work to come in. Because I think there was definitely a time, like you were saying through the pandemic and stuff, like initially we probably were a bit scared and like, oh, how's this going to affect animation? But then like you say, I think it actually created a bit of a boom. So like there was more work because people weren't filming and stuff. So now I think we're kind of correcting on that. And then because there's less work, obviously that means there's more competition. So then it's harder to stand out. And then there's like more people wanting work. So then potentially, what you relied on before, like your past clients or referrals from people and stuff, like if that's dried up, you need to think about what other ways can I market myself and how can I put my business out there? And maybe like kind of offering different services or thinking about more, how can I solve a client's problem in a niche? You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to progress a little bit as an industry, in like how we kind of talk about what we do, because like I went to an event the other day, not a motion design event at all, just kind of like a general business one. And I explained what I do, I said I help motion designers and I explained what motion design was. And then everyone in the room was like, oh, that sounds really good. I feel like my business could do with that. But they didn't know what it was. They didn't understand it. They didn't know how it could help them. So there's definitely opportunities out there. I think it's as studio owners and motion designers, we need to try and learn a bit more about like how to talk to people in business, and case studies and showing results and testimonials and all of this stuff. I think is becoming more and more important because now there's more competition.
Also, we have a lot more screen, if we see screen everywhere, we got gaming and everything, website using. But the other thing as well, I think is important because, like you said, in the past, before I had the studio, I freelance for years, for about 7-8 years in London. I never stay without work. And it was the time, I think until pandemic, if you was good, you would have work, enough work coming through. You didn't need to do anything. But what happened, as you said, is less work out there. There is a lot more people out there. And I think for us as a designers, animators, motion design, whatever we want to call that, but we don't promote, we don't do sales, we don't do marketing planning, sales plan, and it's a time like you can't just sit and wait anymore. You need to start planning what you're gonna do, and it's the same, contracts and things like that. I think people need to understand is as the same as studio is doing a sale, a freelance needs to do as well, because people forget about you. It's not, sometimes it's not even you're not good, but people don't remember you there because it's so much buzz, so much noise out there. And I think it's a time we need to move a little bit and start planning things.
There's a little bit of irony at the moment in terms of marketing because it's never been easier, but it's also never been more difficult. With like social media, like it's fine for a while, but now it feels like because all the algorithms change, if you put work out there and try and promote yourself, you're just shouting into a void. Like everything has changed. So how do you go about tackling that when your main way of getting out your voice out there is through like the social medias, which aren't helping?
What you're saying as well, the social media, I think for me, social media is still you sit and wait. Is indirect marketing, you post that and you wait people to come. Of course you got all the algorithm and things affecting, but for me that's not sales and that's not marketing. People still find people on Instagram, but that is not like literally you're making a plan and you're going out and you're contacting clients and email people, and I think motion designers, we're really bad on that, and it's something I always talk about. Like I receive a lot of emails every single day, and if you see how bad is people writing emails nowadays, it's unbelievable. Or the emails that size and think people gonna read, or has 20 links on the email, or the person doesn't even bother to spend 10 minutes look your company and write a direct to you. Sometimes you can see it's a copy and paste. If that person looking for work can't spend 10 minutes to research you, contact you properly, why you as a company you should spend 10 minutes reading his email? And I think this is something really missing in the industry. It's really bad how people write email and there's no connection. It's just no skills.
Of course. Like I know, I think like obviously we have like email templates and stuff in our courses, but like there's so much information out there about email, and the first thing that everyone says is like personalize it. So I think you're completely right there. I think so. The way I look at it, marketing, I think about inbound marketing and outbound marketing, which I know is like to maybe not to you two, but like to a lot of people, that's like a new concept. So, if you think about inbound marketing, it's like, you kind of, the best way that I've heard it described and I like the most is that you have a big magnet and you're kind of drawing people to you, so things like social media and things like that, you can use them as a tool. You just have to be very strategic about it. And then outbound marketing is like what you're saying, like, like emailing people and going more direct, and kind of like you've got a big, megaphone and you're sort of shouting, like, hey, I'm here, like I'm here kind of thing, exactly, like you're talking to your past clients, you're like all of that kind of stuff. So I think that what a lot of people need to do, and they don't do, is like do a bit of both. But then you have to be strategic on social media, like what you're saying, Thiago. I don't think you can just like post on Instagram anymore and be found. Like that's not how to use social media, And I remember I was thinking when you were talking, like back when I started talking about LinkedIn, on the Motionhatch podcast and stuff, no one was on there. And I was just looking at it going, this is a massive opportunity. Why are no motion designers on there? And then I feel like, I don't know, probably because of a few reasons, but also because I banged on about it too much. There seemed like then loads of people got on there. And then for a while, it was kind of going really well because of how the algorithm was, and they wanted like posts, they wanted creators, they wanted creative people. So
that's part of a reaction. That was part of a reaction to Instagram and Facebook and all the other motion social medias.
Yeah, because like they were obviously like, having the algorithm meant that your stuff wasn't getting out there as much. So then LinkedIn was in that stage where it was like, we just want content. So if you put like a really nice motion design piece out there, it's going to go out to like loads and loads of people. And now it's changed again where that's not the case. So kind of what happened was, I think, obviously I'm not an algorithm expert, but just from like watching and like other people who know more than me about LinkedIn particularly, is that they were really, LinkedIn was like, oh yeah, videos, animation, let's show it to loads of different people. And then loads of people got clients because they were kind of putting stuff out there. And obviously like most people were on there lurking and weren't actually posting, so they didn't benefit from that. And then what I think happened is recently it changed again, the algorithm. Now what seems to have happened is if you're talking about motion design all the time, then it's going to show your stuff to motion designers, right? Which is, then you're probably not going to get clients from that.
Shoot yourself in the foot a bit.
Like obviously it's important to share in the industry and share valuable posts. And I think we can kind of do a bit of both. But this is what I'm talking about when I say use social media strategically, is you have to kind of now, and this is just like fairly recent that this sort of started to happen, is LinkedIn's trying to sort of show it to people it thinks will like the content, because now it's got more content on the platform. It can be a bit more picky about who they show it to, right? So if you're talking about motion design, it's going to think, okay, cool, let me show that to motion designers. But if you are like addressing a certain type of client or a certain type of problem and offering some value to a different type of person that isn't a motion designer, then it will start showing it to different types of people. And I think you can like do a little bit of both. Like I see people who do client work and then they also talk to motion designers a bit, but then they kind of have like a very clear avatar, or persona of a client, and they talk to them very well as well. Like a good example is Kevin Rapp. I don't know whether you know him. He's like really pro at LinkedIn. And then another person who I would check out is Luke Stanley. So he was a student of mine. Maybe it was like a couple of years ago or a year ago or something like that. And when I was talking to him, he was talking about how he wanted to niche down into motion brand guidelines. So he was like, cool, how can I do that? I need to build a website. I need to have everything ready. I need to have all of these projects and stuff like that. And I was like, no, you're going too far. Like, you don't even know whether there's a need for motion brand guidelines, right? You haven't spoken to anyone. So what I told him to do was do more of a like build in public model. So he just went on LinkedIn and made a really good post, and he had a project that he'd done that was like a fake, like a fake motion brand guideline project. So he had an example.
Or spec piece.
A spec piece, exactly. So he took that and he wrote a post that basically said, this is my idea and this is what I want to do. This is why I think motion brand guidelines are valuable. And then he got 2 clients just from that post. Now, I don't think, and this is maybe about a year ago or something like that. I think that was. So obviously it's changed again now, but just the fact that he had that idea and that clear client in mind, and he like spoke to, and obviously motion designers were interested too. So that probably helped boost the engagement of the post. But yeah, I was really impressed with that because I thought, I know this is going to work, but I was thinking maybe he'll get a client in like 2 months time or something doing that. But now his whole business is motion brand guidelines work, and he still posts on LinkedIn all the time, and you can see it's really good.
How do you tailor it? I mean, is it still just hashtags, or is it read? I guess it read your content as well. But how do you tailor it, especially if you're aiming at something that's very close to motion design, but not like, for example, you want to get your work in front of like creative directors at like an agency or what have you, like BBD or whatever. Obviously, it's very close to motion design in terms of how you would hashtag it.
Yeah, it's not just about like, I don't think you can just put like I don't know what we're talking about, like
Dave at
agency.
BBDO.
Yeah, exactly. I that's not going to work. I think that basically, if you're talking about those kind of clients, like animation studios, like agencies, like you're saying, that content is kind of the same because they have the same interests as you, and that's
Yeah.
sort of like, it's not really like that. I think it's like you need it to be differentiated enough. So this is where like a niche comes in, or another industry, or a direct client, like that kind of stuff, because otherwise
like,
you can't differentiate it from
so you
what
go
you
after the
do.
exact company then, like, I want to go after like GlaxoSmithKline or something. It'd be more, so it's way further afield. So it's a bit more, it can feel more targeted.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's difficult. I think you're more still playing the game of meeting people in our industry and doing stuff like that when you're thinking about animation studios and agencies. What I'm kind of talking about here more is like direct to clients and stuff like that. Like that's easier to stand out because you can address their problems more directly than you can,
So how do you do that if you were, because obviously if you're a freelance motion designer, generally, unless you're building it up as a studio, you're not going to go after direct clients per se. Obviously, you would never rule out a direct client, of course not. But then how would you use this information to go after like freelance projects?
Yeah, so you're saying well, some people do as freelance motion designers have direct clients and go after
Yeah, of
that,
course.
and I think that's fine. But you're talking about like, okay, so let's talk about, we don't want to do that. We want to work with agencies and animation studios.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you're still doing like a similar thing, but you're thinking about, how can I not just be posting about my work all the time, right? So because I think you want to be part of the community and you want to be discussing things that people find interesting, in our industry and in the wider, let's say TV and film industry. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think that's
sure.
why it's always good to think about, kind of have a particular client in mind, say like, I don't know, you want to work on, film titles or something like that, like then you would talk more about that, and what's involved with that, and here's a project that I did and stuff like that. But you're not just going to always say, look, here's my project and here's my case study and all of this. Like, you have to think about, what are the topics that sort of surround this, because that would be considered more of like an awareness post, something that lots of people are interested in, right? Where you're going to get lots of comments, lots of engagement. It's going to push you out to more people. They kind of like the rung down from that, would be like, how can I've got some attention, right? How can I like attract these people like to me, So then you're thinking about, okay, more like behind the scenes stuff, a bit more about your work, but less just like, here's my work, hire me, like not that kind of thing. And then there's like, yeah, exactly. But then there's like the bit below that where you want to be more like that, where you're talking about, like, potentially you're talking about your availability, potentially you're saying like, you're talking a bit about the project adding some value that you did, or like having a testimonial, but then you're saying like, if you want to work with me, like send me a DM, like being a bit more direct. But it's usually, what the problem is people are doing that kind of thing all the time and then just not doing any of the other stuff. And I would say, if anything, lean more towards the other stuff and then very infrequently do that,
Well, I guess from a client point of view, if you're just doing those same posts, you're feeling a bit used.
Not interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. I had a complete different opinion about LinkedIn. I don't think you can really get the clients there. I don't think clients. If we're talking about agency, a creative director of agency is not going to be looking at motion graphic design posts. And that, even to be honest, me coming from a studio, I'm not gonna read. I would never use LinkedIn to look for freelance, and I think LinkedIn is gone already. Since it's so much noise, so much just buzzing going around. I don't think people read anymore. It's like Instagram. People don't really look Instagram anymore. They go on the stories and that's it. So if you have a post, I think there, the only people really gonna read, in my opinion, is motion designers, because like a creative director in an agency is not gonna have the interest. or he's not going to spend that time reading. He's more about promoting himself and looking what the other creative directors did, like so he can feel part of that group. So it is, to be honest, for me, and I know a lot of people comment about this, is LinkedIn turns to be like a really annoying place to be nowadays. It's not how it used to be, where people goes to business and try. I think for me, the only thing for LinkedIn then is still really worth is getting the connection, trying to connect to that connection, and getting a way to get access to that people.
It's good to get names, and then you go down the personalized email route or something like that.
Yeah, you can do that, and you can get the email. You can try connect from that, but like posts, I'm not really.
But then
sure
it still gives LinkedIn a value, though.
It does on that sense.
But everyone uses things differently too. Like that's the way you use it, and I completely respect that. But someone in far off in America might have a different point of view. They might not come from a creative background. They might be a production background or whatever background, and they might view things differently as just a way to find people or whatever. But everyone's got different uses for it.
But I think for finding people is great. I think it's just so much pollution there. I don't think anyone reads.
There's a lot of recruiters, that's for sure. Like, hey, I don't know you.
It is. It is. And a lot of people promote, like, you can see a lot of people is being posting jobs there. That is just a buzz in the market, and the jobs probably doesn't even exist. It just attracts a lot. It's a strategic a lot of people is doing at the moment. You just post a job there, you attract a lot of attention, but the job doesn't even exist. You've seen a lot there on LinkedIn now.
I don't know whether that's always true, because
no, I'm not saying always, but I'm saying it's a lot there happening.
I think that now people are like, I've got a job, but maybe I won't post it on there, because you're going to get too many people to kind of be able to manage that, basically. Is what I think probably is happening now. What I'm saying is, it doesn't necessarily have to be LinkedIn. I disagree with you slightly on that front. I'm not like advocating for LinkedIn, but what I described as, is that how to attract people, like that can apply across like anything, any platform. And I feel like, obviously we all know that meeting people in person is the most impactful way to build trust. Like, we all understand that. But what else have we got online, at the moment, where we can actually try and build relationships with people? And I think, like, in a way that I agree with you, you need to be like commenting, you need to be building relationships with people on there too. Like, it's not just about like posting, for sure. Like, it isn't about that. It's like building an online community around you. And also, another thing to think about, even though it is saturated, I agree, and I think it will change. And I'm really hoping that we're going to get something better. I'm hoping someone's going to innovate and we're going to have something else, because, like, I agree with you. It's not the same as it used to be. But one thing that I think to remember is that only 1% of people who are actually on LinkedIn post. And I think that's an opportunity. Because if a lot of clients are like lurkers, they might not like post on there, but they might look like on there for like news and different things and like what's happening in their industry. I still think
so low.
That's quite a recent stat as well. From
what are your thoughts? Report. What are your thoughts on Behance entering the hiring and game as well? Because they've recently done a thing where you can put your availability, and companies can commission people.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, maybe it's because it's new, but I haven't heard anyone like talking about that, or like saying like, oh yeah, I got a job from there. Or it doesn't mean that it won't happen. I just think that maybe like, it's good to mention that, like, let's keep kind of telling people like more where, like, potentially here, potentially there, And I think this is the kind of point, is what I try and teach people, rather than like use this specific platform and do this, it's more like build a system around how you market yourself. Think about how you can attract people to you, and think about also how you can kind of go out there and talk more about your work and kind of do these things in tandem. And, we all know like how powerful having a CRM is, and actually knowing who your clients are and the past clients, and just keeping up with that. And even that is sometimes really difficult for freelancers to keep up with, and make sure that you're
part of the job,
doing like emailing your past clients and connections, and making sure you're just checking in and saying hi, right? And I think that just having systems like that, I think, can be really, really helpful.
I completely agree. I think it is part of the job, and people, especially if you freelance, is all this touching base, updating clients, contacting all the clients. This is crucial. Without that, especially nowadays, with the amount of noise we have out there, with the amount of people out there, if you're not constantly, reminded you're still there, even for clients you work a lot, sometimes you just they completely forget about you. And I think
Exactly.
freelancers forget about that. It is part of the job of the freelance to promote,
and that's what I miss.
to sell.
That's what I miss about not being in London, is like it's always quite nice to, every now and then just meet up for a coffee or a beer or something. You can't really do that when you're not in that same area. But that's one aspect I do miss. It feels natural then. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like there's an agenda, because there generally isn't. It's just keeping up appearances, and you enjoy hanging out with people anyway. So from that aspect, it's quite nice, and it keeps you in people's mind in a natural way.
Yeah, for sure. But another way that I try and use LinkedIn as like a bit of a crossover to that is because when I go to an event and I tell other people to do this, it's like I usually say, oh, like, let's add each other on LinkedIn, and if they don't use LinkedIn, fine, like find a different platform, doesn't really matter. But then you've kind of met someone. It doesn't feel like, I don't feel like it feels as intrusive as being like, here's my business card, give me your email, or do you know what I mean? But then I know that I post on LinkedIn. So if they're actually on there and they are looking on there, and I assume if they want to add, if they want to be connected on LinkedIn, and they do that, then that,
well, it leaves
I feel
up
like
to
that
them,
helps.
doesn't it?
Yeah, but that helps. I feel like that helps people stay top of mind if you are posting, and even if you're commenting on other people's posts, you're kind of just going to keep popping up in their feed, right? Especially if they've got like a lot of connections who don't post and stuff. And I feel like that's just like another little way to stay top of mind, because you might not go on there and find people, but the people you're already connected to, if you're on there and they're the people who are posting, who are commenting and doing all that stuff, you're going to be like, oh yeah, you're going to be like, oh yeah, Hayley, you know what I mean? Like, I remember her. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think a reminder is really important. But how do you feel, especially for people starting the industry? Because I think we still work by recommendation. I think the most
That's always number
strong
one.
part of the industry is recommendation.
It's because you've been vetted by someone else, so it's way less risk.
And to work with someone you never met, and to be honest, coming from a studio, you can have amazing show reel, doesn't matter, like a lot of people, you look the show reel and it's a massive piece, they don't explain what they did, that doesn't matter. You don't really know what they did on that.
Put the film grain on.
Well, they should put the credits, and they should explain what they did.
They should explain it, because coming from a studio, from me, I see, and I know it's a massive project, but what you did maybe was a small part, or maybe you did a big part, and it's quite hard to understand. So recommendation is something, for me, is like the biggest thing, so we always go recommendation first. We like trying new people, but it needs to be the right moment, the right place, because you can risk. Sometimes you can't risk, and a recommendation, at least you have someone certified, that person probably can do the work, How do you feel for the new people coming to the industry, because they don't have recommendation?
I guess this is like, what are your tips kind of starting out? Sorry.
Yeah. So, well, exactly. But if you're saying, okay, we work on recommendations, which a lot of people do, like, we've got to try and build trust. So how do we do that? We expand our network. So like, I'm a new motion designer, and I meet some more people, and then they know some more people. Like, that's how you get recommended, right, from someone else. So it's like, okay, so how can we, meet more people and expand our network? And, it might not necessarily be like that the person you're talking to or you become friends with is the hiring person. They could be friends with one of you. Do you see what I mean? So like, this is where as well, like, social media platforms and stuff like that come back in, because then you're like, oh, I'm connected with another motion designer. Or even like in our communities, this happens quite a lot. So, people will join our community, they'll get to know each other over the course of when they're doing the course or the program or whatever. And then they'll start like recommending each other because they built a good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So stuff like that. So I think it's just about like, how can I, you know, build relationships with people over the long term and not just be like, hey, hire me all the time, which I know it's really hard, you know, it's really hard.
It's all about relationship. It's about two human beings. It's not about two companies, you know, and people sometimes forget about that. It's all about trust. And it is, you know, and I think it's something motion designers are really bad to go and networking, you know, and we have this, you know, Evo Live, you know, sometimes it's come a lot of people, and it's really nice to see when people get work or someone recommend that. But it's creating a, you know, a community. You need to know people. You need to get, you know, in a stage where people can recommend you, and it is tricky because a lot of people has not really good communication skills, or, you know, doesn't want to, you know, go out and everything. And it's important in some level. It's always important because you need to know that person. You know? It's quite tricky.
Yeah, it's hard. Like I try and do quite little intimate events in person, because then I'm always sort of spotting the people who, you know, they're on the edge of the room, you know, and I'm always trying to get those people in. It's really hard, but I feel like
a school disco.
Yeah. But as the host, right, like I don't know, I feel like it's my responsibility to be like that. But yeah, as well. And I think it is, you know, it's getting harder and harder just to make connections with other motion designers, even on social media. But I think like that's why I like creating like online communities, and a lot of like, I'm also in like some paid online communities myself, and I always find that I make better connections as well in there, you know, because like everyone's like in there, they're more like dedicated, they're learning together, they're helping each other. You're kind of, you know, have someone else like facilitating your relationship to a certain extent.
You don't have to break the ice, do you? You've always got that common thread, so it's straight.
Exactly.
You've got us in straight away, which makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, I'm always telling all the students in my course, like, I'm like, put a Calendly link up, you know, on your profile. Make sure you like go and look at everyone's profile. Just go and book a call with them, reach out to them. You know, you don't like be friends, you know, this is what it's about. And it's not even like so they can get work. I mean, I feel like it kind of naturally happens like that, but it's just so that you can know that, you know, you've got other people out there who are like supporting you, and, you know, sort of having like your own little motion design business family.
I think was it the last live show, the one before? There was some students there, and myself, and I think it might have been Thiago and Chris Sayer as well. And we were chatting to him. And they were like, I really want to go ask the speaker a question. And they were like really shy about it. Like, why don't you just go and ask him? Obviously, in the end, to make it easier, we just introduced him. And that's what they were trying to gear in towards.
Right.
Sometimes some people just need that little push. And then once that's done, everything else is sorted. You know, everything feels natural. You got your conversation, and then it kind of works out fine. But some people just need that initial nudge and inertia. Yeah,
one of the things that I did when I first you know, well, I think I was actually working full time, but then it kind of went into freelance because it lasted so long, is I did like a personal project. It was called Bingomation. I don't know whether anyone like remembers it, but it was basically like 99 animations based on bingo calls. And my idea was like, it was someone else's idea originally, but they like, you know, went away and didn't end up finishing the project. But because I'm a stickler for finishing, I like basically gave me an excuse to talk to loads of motion designers and animators. So I just like email people and be like, hey, do you want to be part of my like little collaboration project? You have to do like 5 seconds of animation or something. It wasn't very much. And like, here's a bingo call, and like do that. And then it was really good. And then in the end, like people started using it to like hire people, because they were like, oh, I can see everyone's like style, and it's just all on one page. And it was just really nice. And that was just something that I did like even before Motionhatch. And that really helped me to like build a network with people like in the US and everywhere, you know.
I say there was an era where I'm going to say like 2007 to 2012 as a guess. But like there was a bit of an era where there was a lot of nice collaborative projects worldwide. Like, you know, like your project, there was a Join the Dots one. There's obviously Pass It On. And there was quite a few, and I don't, maybe because my finger's not on. Yeah, that's scary. Maybe my finger's not on the pulse anymore. But I haven't seen any kind of like big collaboration of lots of artists coming together for a while. And you would have thought something like the pandemic would have been like the prime time, you know, for example. Like, but there doesn't seem to be anything like that for.
I think there's like little pockets. I don't think it's like a big one, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend anyone like do that as an undertaking because it took me 4 years to complete it. But
The logistics are crazy, aren't they?
Yeah, at least I
It's a lot of work.
you know, got a lot of contacts out of it, so it's fine. But yeah, so like I know Mothers of MoGraph have got like some little collaboration projects going on right now. And then I think a guy called Mark Lawrence he's like, I follow him on LinkedIn. He was one of our old students. He's like doing some stuff and he posts it. And I know I think there's like 5 animators at a time get together. I've seen like a few popping up. It's just like in little pockets. But there's no reason why like 5 animators can't get together and make something, you know. I think there was also like some people in our programs decided to do a little collaboration. I can't remember what it's for now, and I feel bad that I can't remember.
I like it when it's at scale though. Like it sounds like, you know, your project where you've got a lot of animators, because then you know when you put it online, there's so many more eyes coming in to look at this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And that is one of the good things. And I think I even did like an event in London where I like invited everyone and we sort of talked about it. Because I feel like it went on for so long that I was like, oh, I've got to do like a big fanfare. And then I think
Sounds more like a therapy session.
Yeah, it was honestly. But I think I actually like introduced Motionhatch for the first time at that event. So it sort of crossed over a little bit. And that wasn't really intentional. It was just because the other project took so long that I already had like another new personal project in the works.
This feels like the natural progression.
Yeah. I think, you know, I'm always like, you know, I'm always a bit woo-woo and I'm like, oh, it was meant to be, you know, like kind of crossed over perfectly. And already, and like a lot of the people who did that project, actually, when I first started the podcast, they were like the first listeners. And they like, they were like my like little launch team, you know, so like I got them all in a Facebook group. There was obviously like 100 people, it wasn't that many. And
you signed the contract you have to watch.
no, it wasn't, because that was just like a nice fun thing that we did together. But then I was like, hey, I'm launching this thing, let's be in a Facebook group together. And then they helped share it out and stuff like that because they were enthusiastic about it. And I think we went out with 3 episodes. I remember Joey Corman was one of the first ones, and I really appreciate him because I was so nervous to reach out to him initially. But my podcast editor guy was like, you should just reach out, because he was like, I don't know who this guy is, just reach out to him. But yeah, he was really gracious and he came on, so that really helped.
He was doing his film, wasn't he? Attack the Block at that time, I would have guessed.
I don't know. Are we talking about the same person?
You said Joe Cornish?
No, Joey Corman from School of Motion.
Oh, right, sorry. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's even better. He's a really nice
guy. Joey didn't do Attack the Block, did he?
We had him in the show, years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Dodgy internet connection.
Like at the time, School of Motion was like the only thing that was like vaguely online, and I think it was kind of like a bit small, but I thought like, oh, you know, like people, just everything seemed smaller then. That was like 2017, so there wasn't like much going on. But I was still really nervous because I just thought like, why would anyone want to come on this podcast? It doesn't exist. Do you know what I mean?
That's one of the things,
pre-existence.
I think that's one of the things about doing See No Evil. Like when you first start out, it's like you put some people on like a pedestal, like some studios or some directors and what have you, and their work's amazing. And you're like, oh, I don't know if I should speak to them or not, and whatever. But then you just realize that everyone's a normal person, and it's like, you know, everyone's approachable. Really, everyone's got the same kind of same apprehensions.
Yeah, I think it's quite worth normal. Talking about.
I think it's quite normal. I think it's people always get a bit scared, you know, contact people, but it's
because you're so intimidating, Thiago.
Yeah, but no, I think it's everyone is, you know, in the end of the day, it's all human beings. Everyone has, you know, your own life there, but some people don't wanna, you know, we're trying to get people in the show then doesn't feel comfortable, you know, talking in the show as well. So it's quite funny to.
That's fair enough. That's always like a bit of a risk with our industry, isn't it? It's always like, because, you know, just because someone makes great work on the screen doesn't mean they want to talk out of the screen.
Yeah, it's almost like a different skill. I've definitely run up against the same problem of like really wanting people to come on, but then, you know, then maybe they don't have the confidence at the time, but I'm just quite persistent, and I like obviously try to make it easy.
How about
for
now?
Too.
How about now? How about now?
Yeah, and I you know, I try and like coach them a little bit through it as well. you know.
That's
So.
good. So what is your plans, you know? Do you have what is your plan for the next, 3 years, or what you want to
Where do you
take
see Motionhatch
Three
going?
years. Yeah.
Or where do you want to take it as a future thing,
Yeah, so I guess like I really just want it to be like the place that people go when they think about the business side of motion design. I just want them to think like, yep, Motionhatch, like makes sense. I think they do think that. I don't know. Like I always say that, and then I'm like, people will say that, yeah, I already think that. And I'm like, cool. But it always feels different when it's you. But I just want to help more people, basically. So the more people that know about it, the better. And then if it's just like top of mind, like great. Because, obviously we have a lot of free content as well, like tons of YouTube videos, tons of podcasts. And obviously I love to help people in the courses too, because it's more structured learning, and we have like a lot of accountability. We have the communities in there. And I know like that's like one of the biggest things that a lot of people get out of it is just having that little tight knit group of people to really, connect with.
There's a couple of questions on the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Just going to delve into one from Claudio Jr. who says, how difficult is it to enter an already established industry? This is kind of a two-part question. He's been a motion designer for 9 years. He's lived in Italy for 2 years. Until now, he's not been able to enter the job industry in his area in Europe. He's received lots of, hundreds of no's. So how do you go about getting into an already established industry? I think his question is.
Yeah, I mean,
recommend?
It's hard. I would love to know more. I'll try and answer the best I can, but if he can give me more, does he mean like motion design is a more established industry, or do we think he means like a different industry as a motion designer?
Oh, like he wants to be a motion designer within the creative community, within the creative industry, or something, or a different industry.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
that's
creative industry.
Yeah,
I assume.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. I just want to get clear so I can, be.
I feel like we touched on this with the LinkedIn social media in a way.
Yeah, exactly. I think the most important thing, and what I try and teach everyone and remind everyone of, is that you've got to try and create these little systems for yourself, because I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed. So, we mentioned the CRM, like having a client relationship manager and kind of, keeping up with all your contacts. And just what I tell my students that I think is just really helps them is think about, right, maybe on a Tuesday morning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to people that I've worked with before or people that I already know. So if you haven't had any jobs before, fine, doesn't matter. Just people you already know, right? Who's already in your network. And then think, right, and now on Thursday morning, what I'm going to do is then I'm going to like look for new client leads, and I'm going to, start a conversation with them, or potentially like follow them wherever they are. And, it depends who it is and that kind of thing. If you're Thiago and you want to work at Cookie Studio, don't go on LinkedIn and try and follow him because he's not on there.
Obviously.
No, you know what I mean? But like,
I'm just not going to read.
Yeah, exactly. So like, where they have to think about like, where do the people that I want to work with hang out? And then try and engage with them like on that level, and try and like become friends with people in that area, right? But I think having the CRM system really helps, because you can set like blocks of time in your week and you can just check in on it, and it doesn't become this like massive overwhelming thing. And then what I'd also recommend is thinking about, so in our course, Client Quest, we talk about, the awareness, attraction, action, and advocacy, like different stages of the funnel. Are your clients aware of you? Have you had a conversation with them? And you can also break your CRM up in this way. So you can think of, right, put everyone in awareness they haven't heard from me. They don't know who I am. So you think about, let's have 10 people in there. And then you want to think about, how can I like draw those people down? So how can I like warm them up so then they know who I am? And it might even just be like, who do I know who knows them? Do you know what I mean? We talked a lot about referrals, but I think if you just do it like 10 at a time and you try and draw them down, then I feel like it's going to be easier than people just going like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cold emails, because then you get into that problem like Thiago mentioned earlier, where you don't personalize it. You make mistakes. Like I was talking to another studio owner and he said like, I get like people like calling me the wrong name. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you just have to make it more manageable, but be consistent with that. So I think I would think about that first, and then you can kind of build other systems on top of that, you know. So think about, you know, are my clients on social media? Can I connect with them there? Do I want to post some stuff? What do I want to post? You know, it's all like, it's like a big thing, right? Like it's hard to put all of these like pieces together. But I think if you try and break it down into small, more actionable steps, like it becomes easier. So just think, okay, this week I'm going to sort out my like client tracker, right? My CRM. Let's just do that this week. Let's get that working. Let's get it kind of like ticked off and out of my brain so I can more easily manage it. Does that make sense? Is there like follow-up questions? Because I imagine there might be.
And I think one important thing you said is make personal, you know. I think for someone is looking for work or looking for connection, that person needs to spend the time to understand.
By personal, you mean don't threaten their family though?
No, but I think stalk him, you know, stalk that person, him or her.
I have your address. This is where you live.
Really know. and because you have like, let's say you have 5 minutes of attention, 2 minutes of attention of that person. You need to hook that person for longer. And the only way to do that is with personal thing. You want to make that person curious about you. Who are you and how you know things about him, you know? And when I say stalk, people really stalk, you know. If you know someone like a motorbike, you know, and he can make a comment on that, and the person is going to say, well, how he knows that, you know? And that you buy time, you know. And I think it's really important that, and people don't do that. People want to send 100 emails in that week. Instead, send 5 emails really, you know, personal emails. Then you know,
it's like common thread. It's like we were saying earlier. There should be a common thread, be it animation or motorbikes or whatever. Establish common thread in your email and then make it concise. I think that's probably a good way forward.
I think it is.
Definitely.
There's another question from Andre Franz Malman, who says, how to keep motivated in the area while struggling with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, this is a tough one. And I think I'd say at first, everyone feels like an imposter. Yeah. So just know that. I feel like an imposter.
Part of being a creative.
Like it doesn't go away. You know, I saw someone else talking about on LinkedIn the other day who, like, you know, you would think like, oh, this person doesn't have imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Like everybody feels like that. And I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. Everyone feels like that. So I think that's the one thing, just to acknowledge that. And then the other thing is, I think really try and build your support network around you as well. And like, obviously get feedback and stuff like that. Like it's really hard, right? Because it's like, you can ask your clients for feedback, but it's kind of, you know, like sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it isn't, you know what I mean? Like, so I think, you know, this is where it gets kind of tricky, which is why, you know, we do portfolio reviews and we do all of that kind of stuff, because I think you need to get feedback from people in the industry, but obviously it's hard to ask for people's time sometimes. And like, you know, like we were talking about clients, you can't ask your mum as well. And do you see what I mean? So like,
they're giving you time for free. Feedback. It is a big ask.
Exactly.
In a busy day.
Yeah. So that's why I think, like, you know, Motionhatch comes in and the courses and stuff, is because, like, you know, then obviously you have people around, not just me as well. Like it's about having the other motion designers and the other studio owners who can also give you feedback as well. I always make sure that we facilitate the community so that it's kind of like, I like to think of it as like a 360 thing where, you know, you don't just have like one person's opinion, because I don't think that's as helpful, you know.
Especially if it is your mum's. It's like, yeah, it's lovely, darling.
Yeah, exactly.
What
so
do you
it's
do
good
again?
to get it from lots of people, you know, and I think that's where, you know, like some of these paid communities and some courses and stuff come in really handy, because that's where obviously, you know, those people have the time and everyone's there supporting each other as well, which I think is always really nice.
Yeah, the showreel review you guys do for I mean, I think that's pretty valuable. From like, if Claudio, for example, is trying to break into an industry, it's great to have the industry look at the reel and give feedback for the, you know, for proper feedback, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool, guys. We're getting just over an hour. So should we do a last question, James? Do you want to throw one more question?
Have a look. Yeah, if you could go back in time, time cop style, and you could give yourself a piece of advice for starting out, what would it be to make your life easier?
Yeah, I think it's kind of twofold almost, but I would say be more confident, because like I said, everyone has imposter syndrome, and I feel like
Take it till you make it.
Yeah, I feel like, everyone doubts themselves. I would say, it's okay, you got this, be more confident. And then also what I would say is don't be afraid to ask people, for help, for stuff. I feel like the only reason I've got to where I am now with Motionhatch and everything and in my career is because I asked other people for help, And like we said, it is hard because everyone's busy and stuff like that. But I feel like thinking about what do I have to offer them, like what some examples we've talked about today, when I had my collaboration project, yes, I was asking people for something, but then I was also giving some value to them. So I think it's like thinking about that. So like, why the podcast works so well is, yes, I'm going out there and asking people, will you come on my show and that kind of thing, but I'm also giving value back to them. So I think I would think about that is like, don't be shy and ask for help and ask for things that you want, but also think about how I can give value back to the community as well.
Yeah, it's nice. Good. I think that's a great way to finish the show. I think it's a lot, I think it's a lot for people to take, because it's still a subject, like motion designers don't talk much, and it's part of our job. So, thanks so much for every single tip and comments you gave, and for joining us. It's been great.
Yeah.
Do you want to mention Client Quest before we say goodbye?
So just if anyone wants to join me over the summer and wants my help to build some client acquisition systems out and learn more about inbound marketing and outbound marketing and how you can manage all this stuff that we've been talking about today, because I know that it's overwhelming. If you go to motionhatch.com/quest, you will see that we're doing a live event over 6 weeks. And I haven't actually ever run this course live, so I'm really excited. It's going to be really great. And we've already got people joining in there. There's early bird tickets on sale now, so you can get a little discount as well, which is nice. So yeah, if you go to motionhatch.com/quest, then you'll see all the details there. And then if you've got any questions about that course, just reach out to me at hello@motionhatch.com.
That's great. Thank you. And just before we finish, we have the live show comes on the 30th of July in Brick Lane, and we're gonna announce tomorrow. And we have the live stream on the 25th of July as well. But we post everything on the Instagram. Is the best place to to go and follow us as well. And thanks so much. It's been great to have you in the show.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try and make it to the SNE Oval.
Yeah, you should come. Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Cool. Just